The other thing, wildcard, that I'm interested in that you can probably touch on a bit is the White Ferns cricket. And they have had two good victories: victory over South Africa and a victory over Sri Lanka. Solid results, good wins. Um, but this sets up a fascinating time over the next few days because they face England, who are just look levels above the Kiwis. And if they lose that game, they should then face Australia. And they are, I'd say, easily the best teams at this Commonwealth Games. And those two games are going to be informative about this new White Ferns era. So they were challenged against South Africa, less so against Sri Lanka, but their best players were still the likes of Sophie Devine, Susie Bates. So seeing them under pressure from England, especially in this game tomorrow morning, maybe Friday morning. Yes, Friday morning. England will put them under a lot of pressure, and they will put the rest of the playing 11 under pressure as well. And how they respond will tell us a lot about this new kind of White Ferns era. I think Ben Sawyer's the coach, and he doesn't seem to have had a massive impact as far as like team selection. They went with Fran Jonas in the first game against South Africa, and then they replaced her with Rosemary Mair against Sri Lanka, which seems like, spin against South Africa, seam against Sri Lanka seems like a good idea. Interestingly, Eden Carson played both games, and I think that's a sign of the regard she is held in at that White Fern setup. So that's an insider gather with the new coach, is Eden Carson getting a lot of repetitions, and she's a gun in the field, so she offers a lot of value there as well. But yeah, not learning too much about the White Ferns from those first two games. They were good games and good results to set up probably a medal for the White Ferns, I'd say. But bigger picture, learning about the White Ferns in this new era, facing England and then probably Australia, is going to provide a lot more insights.
Yeah, because like from what I can see from these first two games, like they were games where the White Ferns played well enough to win. Like they delivered in the areas they need to deliver, relying a lot on their key players, in particular top of the batting order, as often is the case when they do win. I think I'm right in saying they are a better 2020 team in general than they are an ODI team. So that's also a factor when you consider this, the World Cup where they hit the I don't want to say rock bottom because that's a bit rude, but like, they had a bit of a slump there, obviously, and moved on from coaches, moved on from a few players, very clearly trying to transition into something else, like a new era of this team that came in the ODI format. This is 2020 stuff. And like, say what you want about the White Ferns, look into a new era. South African cricket seems to be going a little bit even further in that with their women's team, where like they're in a little bit of a shambles and having, retirements that same as, the Amy Satterthwaite's retired for the White Ferns. South Africa have lost Lizelle Lee and I think Marizanne Kapp as well. Like two of their very, very best players no longer playing. That's worse. Like that's well, two key players lost is worse than one key player lost. You know what I mean?
Not so. Both of them aren't retirements. Lizelle Lee retired, but there's some shenanigans behind that, because there's like drama as to why she retired. That to me, like South African men cricket was in turmoil up until very recently for at least like 2 years.
Yeah,
and we're talking serious turmoil, like investigations into racism and just all sorts of bullcacker. Kind of seems to have seeped into the women's team on the back of a very strong World Cup. So Lizelle Lee retired in less than lovely circumstances, and then Marizanne Kapp, she had to return to South Africa for family reasons, and they are.
Right.
I think they're also missing Dane van Niekerk, who is a fantastic cricketer as well. So they're without three great players, and also there's this backdrop of South African cricket always battling turmoil. So I just don't think they're as good right now as they could have otherwise been.
No, I mean, you take, we've already taken Satterthwaite out of the White Ferns, but you also take out, let's say, Susie Bates and probably more of a, I don't know, pick a bowler just to balance it out, so Amelia Kerr or something like that. Like, obviously, that's going to make a significant difference to the like competitiveness of any team. So a good win over South Africa, a good win over Sri Lanka, who weren't even at the ODI World Cup, like didn't qualify, but um, it doesn't feel like what they've done is anything different to what they were doing in the 2 or 3 years leading up to that World Cup either, right? Like, does that strike you right? Is it like they're beating the teams in the games they should win? When they get good performances from their best couple of players, it's not like the middle order or the relatively raw bowling attack is the ones like leading them to victory here, playing the most important roles. That's not really the case. It's the same old players doing that and providing the same sort of results they always get, which is why what you're saying about, the big test is yet to come, the next game, and then probably the game after that, and then potentially the game after that, which I would imagine would be most likely a third and fourth playoff. But, three big games to come up against better teams than they've played so far. And that is, that, as you say, that's the test of, has this team, I don't know, turned over a new leaf or whatever, or are they heading in a different direction? Is there an upward trend or whatever? Like, we don't find those things out from seeing the same kind of performances that we've seen from them for several years. We see that when they play better teams and how competitive they are there.
And it goes back to this like balance we're treading with the Commonwealth Games, where a Commonwealth Games medal was like the whole experience for all these athletes is cool. Like, we'd love to be an athlete in that sort of environment. Like, it would be awesome. You're there with a bunch of Kiwis, you're meeting international athletes, you're playing the sport you love. It just seems like an absolute vibe, and it would be awesome. And winning a medal at the Commonwealth Games is also awesome. Like, we don't want to diminish those kind of tasks and those, just the buzz. Like, imagine being Eden Carson. Like, you're just a youngster and you're at a Commonwealth Games. How fucking awesome would that be? But then it's also, we look at these sports in the backdrop of this bigger picture, and as you're saying, like, it just seems like the same thing with the White Ferns. And I'd go further, like, there's no reason why Amy Satterthwaite and Frances Mackay shouldn't be in the team. And if they're in the team, I'm feeling a lot more confident about the White Ferns defeating England and defeating Australia. But that wasn't the object. Like, it's hard to say you're gunning for a gold medal and to win the Commonwealth Games T20 competition when you haven't selected your best players. So that's the like messaging we as fans receive, and that kind of shades the perspective that you look at the team through. And I was like thinking, like, how would this feel if it was just you inject Satterthwaite and Mackay into the team? Way better. The team's way stronger. Like, they're a threat. Jess Kerr's out injured, and I think there was one, Lauren Down. She also dipped out of the squad, funnily enough, because she needs a welfare break. And again, 3 welfare breaks in 2 years now doesn't necessarily reflect well on the wider system around women's cricket in Aotearoa. In the same way, Lizelle Lee retiring, now we're learning about it, the background of her retirement being, issues around how her body image is perceived. And just because she looks a certain way, she's under pressure to meet certain requirements. It's all like, it doesn't reflect well on South African cricket in the same way that multiple well-being breaks in a short period of time doesn't reflect well on not the White Ferns environment necessarily, but the wider system and the challenges these Wahine have to go through. So everything for the White Ferns is very much, we're looking for a medal, but we're also trying to learn about a very strange sports team from Aotearoa that has had a lot of weird shenanigans, weird antics, is currently like without their best players for no decent reason at all, other than wanting to start a new era, and that process isn't conducive with winning. So it's all very strange. And to your point, Susie Bates, Sophie Devine, they're scoring the runs. And it's good, but the thing that's held the White Ferns back for at least 4 to 5 years now is that no one else scored runs to help Susie Bates, Sophie Devine, and Amy Satterthwaite during that phase as well. And I'm also just pondering, wildcard, Leah Tahuhu hasn't taken a wicket. She looks happy. She looks involved in the team. Weird situation for her. And she hasn't taken a wicket yet. So how does that look against the best team? She might step up and be the dominant force. That would be great. Also, Amelia Kerr isn't quite as dominant as a bowler as she was before. She's taken 1 wicket in either game, and this is coming after the World Cup where Amelia Kerr wasn't taking 3 wickets, 4 wickets, those type of performances that catapulted her into one of the best cricketers in the world. Right now, she's a great number 3 batter, and she's taken a wicket in either game, but against England, against Australia, Tahuhu and Amelia Kerr need to be snaring big wickets, because that's how you, instead of chasing 200, you're chasing 130, 140 if they're taking wickets. And those are the margins that keep the Aotearoa White Ferns in the contest against Australia and England.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Kerr's figures because they've set relatively good totals batting first both times. So she's been bowling in a defensive protector total kind of thing. 1 for 24 against South Africa and 1 for 22 against Sri Lanka. So both times like considerably, like notably easily under the required run rate. And I think we might have spoken about this a little bit during the World Cup. It feels like she's getting the Daniel Vittori treatment these days, where it's like no more than 1 wicket, settle for a runner ball, don't try to take anything more than that. She's the most dangerous bowler in this New Zealand bowling lineup. Oppositions are just like, we'll give her a set thing. Like, Daniel Vittori's 1 for 35 type thing that he used to get from 10 overs in an ODI. It's like, we can't stop him from getting that, but we can not let him get anything more than that kind of thing. It feels like Kerr's getting a little bit of that kind of treatment these days.
Which is a honor.
Yeah, it is.
Right? Like that only happens to the best players. And taking one wicket at 4 RPO in a T20 game like that is fantastic. But for the White Ferns to win games against the best teams in the world, to win medals, to win competitions, there needs to be greater cut through with their wickets. Because seam attack, they're all right arm medium pacers. Hannah Rowe, Rosemary Mayer, Hayley Jensen, Sophie Devine. Sophie Devine might be the White Ferns' best bowler. Like, seriously, like she is an excellent bowler. And the rest of the bowlers feel like a less good version of Sophie Devine's bowling, which, respectfully to them, is not a bad thing. And they're swinging the ball, they're bowling in good areas. But it also seems like that is easily smackable by England and Australian batters. Whereas Sri Lanka, they're going to struggle to hit 6s and 4s against that type of bowling. But then you're basically looking at 4 right arm seamers and a couple of spinners, and if one right arm seamer is not working, well, you're going to try another right arm seamer, and there's not much variety there, and not much difference in skill sets either, or styles of bowling. So then you're looking at the spinners to offer a bit of variety, and it does feel like opposition teams, they're far more comfortable in dealing with Amelia Kerr's leggy, wrong-in, flipper, and not being bamboozled by that necessarily. So she becomes a lot more important, and interested to see how Eden Carson goes against England. Not a huge turner of the ball, but she does get great flight and she is quite accurate as well. I think she is a better cricketer than Fran Jonas. And I think Eden Carson should be selected ahead of Fran Jonas in T20 cricket. Fran Jonas is a fantastic one-day bowler. I think Eden Carson offers more value as a fielder and a bowler in T20 cricket. Facing England is a monster challenge for someone like Eden Carson, let alone the more experienced players. Like England know what Leah Tahuhu does. And they can play a pull shot. So bowling short, like you can bowl short. This is the nuance of international cricket on the women's side, because you can bowl short against Sri Lanka and they're not going to pull you for 6. And so you've got a team-wide strength that aligns with their weakness. Against England and Australia, they're going to pull you for 6. So the weapon you're choosing becomes your weakness. And those are the differences in the international teams. It's not just like one team's good, one team's bad. It's like the good team has a whole different skill set to the bad team. And how the Kiwi skill set of like their swing and trying to bounce opposition batters out and having a leggy, having a wrong-it that could bamboozle a weaker team, how that all looks against England and Australia, let alone can Sophie Devine slug England bowlers? Like, is she going to be whacking 6s off Catherine Brunt? Because she can do it against Sri Lanka and South Africa. Is that same hot start going to be possible against England? Because you look at the White Ferns batting lineup, it goes Devine and Bates, Amelia Kerr, which is front loaded. That is like the definition of a front loaded batting lineup. And if you they have done well, the opening duo have done well. They've seen out the first 5 overs in both games and they've scored both in both games. Both batters have scored with strike rates over 100. So what happens if England get an early wicket? What happens if they're restricting the run scoring and those type of things? What if they take 3 wickets in the first 6 overs?
Can we lose?
Let's just say, can the White Ferns deal with that adversity? And these are the questions that not only determine Commonwealth Games success, these are the questions and these are the issues with the White Ferns that have hindered their progress in recent years. And we need to learn about these things to set up how we view the White Ferns moving forward. Because if those issues aren't solved, we're going to be dealing with the same White Ferns problems year after year in the coming years until there is some sort of drastic change.